Chapter 18. Uncle Victor would have to be warned if someone were spying at the snake. But Peter had no way of finding him. If his boat were hidden by camouflage, as Herr Holmes suggested, covered by trees and snow to make it hard to see, it might also be concealed by one of the bends of the twisted stream. Peter had had no sight of the Kling Pearson since he had been aboard her in the autumn. For weeks now he had strained his eyes and searched both banks of the fjord, but all he had seen was the black water and white snow. It would be useless to search for the Kling he knew. Besides, it would be downright dangerous. If they were being watched, it would give the whole thing away. To add a boat to the buried gold was as simple as adding 2 and 2. No one could fail to know what they were doing. So all he could do was to get back to Ryswick and tell his mother or Pierre Garson. Maybe they knew some way to get in touch with Uncle Victor. Helga's team started up the mountain. Peter finished his snowman and waited for his small fry to finish theirs. He lent a hand where he could, and soon there stood an army of soldiers, all in white fur coats, like a ski patrol. From the other side of the Snake, Peter could have climbed a woods trail that saved many miles on the road, but he had no way to cross. Nor could he leave his team. It was up to him to see that they were all brought back to Ryswick the following day. He was responsible that none of them said a single word to the Germans. Helga's warning kept coming back. For this last week, I felt eyes on me every time I've turned around. For some time now, he'd had an uneasy feeling himself, only he wasn't going to admit it, but when Helga spoke right out like that, well, what could you do? It fairly gave you the shivers. For one thing, there was always the thought that things were going too well. For 4 weeks now, they'd been taking gold down the mountains under the very noses of the Germans. Except for trying to reopen the school, the Germans had made no attempt to stop them. Perhaps they knew all along what they were doing. Perhaps they were letting them have all the hard work of hauling 13 tons of gold down the mountain only to find they were aiding the invaders. They were being left alone to do the work, and the Germans would step in and take the gold. If only he could talk to Uncle Victor. If only he knew that the bricks were taken aboard the Kling Pearson every night. But they must be, for every time he returned to the Snake, the snow soldiers were lying on the ground. Come on, everyone. Peter was impatient at his lagging team. We'll be caught if we don't hurry. The Germans had issued a new order, a curfew. None could be out after sunset. The long shadows of late afternoon made blue streaks on the woody sides of the mountain as the children dragged their sleds up its slope. Both borders of the road were heavily timbered, but there were stretches where the brush was less thick, and these were crisscrossed with ski trails. Following the blizzard, the Germans had adopted the custom of the country. They had taken to skiing. Some were clumsy, and the children, who could ski almost as soon as they could walk, roared with laughter at their struggles. There was one fat lieutenant who spent most of his time on the seat of his pants, they said. He would start down the nearest side of a hill to find himself sitting in the snow, his feet straight out before him. Lieutenant Sit Down, they called him, to themselves. But not all the Germans were as awkward as the big officer. A few could do a Christiana turn as gracefully as any Norwegian, though this was hotly debated by children and grown-ups. Of course some of them can ski, Peter had to admit. How do you think they got into our country? He asked Lovisa. A lot of them came weeks ago by train in disguise. They brought their skis and pretended they'd come for the winter sports. Then they learned all about us and our defenses. They showed the way to the ones who came by parachutes and those who pretended to be sailors on the freight boats. Tonight, they would have to run for it to be at the Holmes farm before sunset. Peter increased his pace and urged his team to hasten theirs. They were passing the place where Peter would have come out on the road if he could have crossed the fjord and taken the shortcut up the rocks. The trail went straight up for a time. When it reached a crest, it dipped down again to meet the road below. The wind had blown the dry snow off the branches of some of the pines. They looked black against the white of the forest. Out of the dark pines just ahead shot a German soldier on skis.